We are here with Melanie Yukov. Melanie is such a beautiful human being, and she comes to us with a lot of background in herbalism. She's a speech pathologist. She knows a lot about flower essences. I want to turn it over to Melanie right away and say, Melanie, please tell us about you and all of the amazing background that you have.
Thank you so much. I have been on a really long healing journey myself, and I think it's a nice thing to do to just start with what brought me here to doing and sharing this and how that has brought me to all the pieces of education that I have come into contact with. So, I have had, immune and digestive issues since I was a child. And you know how life is, there's toxins, there's stress, and I just became more and more sensitive and didn't know. My parents didn't know, right? It was like, okay, she's having these rashes and whatever, but they would just bring me to the doctor who would give me, the antibiotic or whatever. And with great intentions, but things just got compounded. And I just have this history of a lot of anxiety issues. I developed such bad sleep issues in college that it started in high school, but in college, I actually went a semester without sleeping. So I was hallucinating. Yeah. So it was pretty bad. And I just realized like the source of all this is my perfectionism, hard work ethic. I mean, I have a history of working myself to the ground and that just self-critical, judgmental nature and FOMO, fear of missing out. I would just rushing and going and doing and doing and going and doing and not knowing how to express my emotions and they became bottled up inside of me and I would develop things like constipation and then gut dysbiosis and IBS and then travel to third world countries and get a stomach bug and can't handle that and just all the things, hormonal issues. And I was detached from my own body. And what I've learned is that the relationship you have with your own body is reflective of the relationship you have with food. So that's what brought me to studying herbalism and studying being a health coach and all of that.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So much of what you said resonated with me as a person and a human.
Mm-hmm.
um, I think it probably resonates with a lot of our moms. So much of your story is about a struggle that you've been through. I'd love to know, where are you today in your journey?
I feel so much more empowered and have a better relationship with myself and with food, and just have a wealth of techniques and tips and just tricks and hacks. I know what to do. If I'm not feeling well, I know what tea to make. I know what herbal remedy to go to. If my stress and my nervous system isn't working well, I know what vagus nerve practice, what breath work practice to use to get my body into balance. And I really believe that our bodies want to heal and they have a lot of wisdom. And it's really just about knowing what to do to support so that you can basically get out of the way of your own healing and be your own healer. So that's what I love to educate people and empower them with.
It's so interesting to me, Melanie, when you talk about this and like your ability to heal yourself. And I think that a lot of people would love to do that more, especially when it comes to their gut health and all that we're starting to hear about gut health and the issues that come with that. What kind of issues do you see most people present when it comes to their gut health?
It varies, but yet I get a lot of people who physically will experience things like constipation or diarrhea, gut dysbiosis, emotionally not being connected with their own bodies, a lot of the same things that I went through, and not having the tools to know what it means and what they can do to change that relationship. A lot of people know kind of what's good for them, but they just don't know how to follow that wisdom. It's like they just need that support to know and trust. And I also get people who are really confused by all the information out there. And, it's confusing. So I get people with inflammatory bowel disease, people with small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, food sensitivities, leaky gut. And these are all the physical manifestations, but sleep issues, anxiety issues, inflammation issues. And basically, this is just a body that's out of balance and just needs support with how to get back in balance. That's essentially what it is. And I really believe that blocked energy also manifests itself in all these diseases too. So if you move your energy in the right direction, which I teach people how to do, then you don't have pain, inflammation, all these things.
Melanie, for our listeners, could you please explain what gut dysbiosis is?
Sure. It's just basically like an imbalance of gut bacteria. We all have bacteria in our gut, trillions of bacteria. Scientists haven't even been able to dissect all the little, because it's so complex, right? But you can have an imbalance of bacteria where certain bacteria grows into proliferation that isn't supposed to and just gets out of balance. And then you can have bacteria fermenting in the wrong places, and you'll get like small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or you'll get things like H. pylori, which, yeah, we all have H. pylori, but if you have stress with H. pylori, then you can have too much H. pylori. And it's just like the tipping point, and then things just get out of whack. And once they get out of whack, it can be challenging to know what to do to get it back.
Thank you for that. I would love for you to also share what makes you different from other health coaches, because you bring a lot of unique background and knowledge to the table.
So I've been on the other side of things where I have gone to health providers and just been given a list of supplements and then a restrictive diet and handed to me. And then you're like, and it's like, it just doesn't work. For me anyway, it didn't. So I started searching, other tools. So what I do is I teach people how, for example, to do self-massage. And that's so important, like, because we store so much, you don't realize how much tension you have in your gut until you like try to tune into that area that we often ignore. So I teach about vagal breathing, vagus nerve, hugely important in digestion. So vagal breathing, getting into that rest and digest state, getting into self-massage, releasing tension, so breath work, all of that. Teaching people how to make foods more digestible and understand what foods are better for them to digest or to eat. Teaching them what plants can support them, because that's an amazing thing to go to. And not to say medication is bad for everyone or anything like that, but whenever I can go to the more natural way first to try that or to get off of the other stuff, I think it's always, amazing. And then just a lot of wisdom with emotional work too, just helping people with those mind-body practices.
I feel like it's become more widely known, but just for any listeners that don't know, I think the vagus nerve is so fascinating. Can you just share a little bit about that too?
Absolutely. It's the 10th cranial nerve. It's the most important, if we could hone in on one. It's called the wandering nerve because it starts back here. It goes around your ear and it goes through here, and it just goes to almost every organ system, and even ones that it's not directly affecting, it's indirectly affecting. Like we share source nuclei in our face with our vagus nerve. So I will do things like face massages, and you'll notice like all the tension that we store that we don't even know we store. And people know, and I think have heard things like, take a cold shower, put your head in a bag of ice or something, or gargle until you're like crying. That's good. I don't particularly like pain or suffering in order to heal. So I teach people how to do it in different ways, using their voice, using massage, as I was saying, using breath work, because these are all easy, natural ways that aren't painful.
You make me laugh. This is a perfect segue into my next question for you. Mm-hmm. How would you teach living in harmony with the body? You've touched on so many different things, but I'd love to hear how you would teach living in harmony with the body.
The most important thing I feel like I do as a coach, and the most important thing that I've learned as somebody who also has dealt with so much with my health, is how to tune into emotions. So what I do is I guide clients through a practice where first I let them feel sensations in their body, and I let them describe them for me. We use a lot of colors and sensations, like what are you feeling? And then from there, I guide them through a series of questions that takes them into what emotions are stored there. And literally, like I guide them through having a conversation with their parts. It's called parts work. And so we all have these different parts of ourselves that we tend to push away who wants to sit with anger or sadness or loneliness or any of these feelings, right? So we tend to push them away. But actually, in me guiding people and how to interact with them, it's like a weight lifted off your shoulders. And you essentially get out of the way of your own healing because you let these parts of you have a voice, if that makes sense. So it's one of the techniques I use. Yeah. And I find it to be important.
So this is the question that I tend to ask a lot of our experts. How do you do this with kids? Can you do this with kids?
With kids, depending on the age of the child, I use emotional freedom tapping, which is basically tapping on acupressure points while saying affirmations. I've done this with kids as young as 4 years old in speech therapy. So this is not even a typically functioning child where, I'm pushing a child to say sounds and they're getting down on themselves, because how hard is that to be saying words over and over that you can't say? And then it's like, okay, and then I just have them repeat me saying little short sentences as we tap on acupressure points. And they feel better after. It's a release, right? So that's an example. In terms of parts work, I've done parts work with kids as young as 15. And she told me, she was like, this is like really uncomfortable, but I do feel better after, And I have her actually on video, a video testimonial of her talking about the emotional work. She was seeing me as a kid with RFID, restrictive eating disorder. So having a very, very a very, very picky eater. We call it a problem eater. Where small amount of food that she would eat. And then also she wanted to see a health coach because she wants to be healthy, in addition to that. So she was 15. And so we did the health stuff. And then I also combined the emotional work.
It's so essential to have both pieces, particularly for issues like that. Yeah. You had previously mentioned reflux as one of the issues. Can you go into what some of the causes of reflux are?
It is important to know because people experience reflux and can be experiencing it for very different reasons. Some people have low stomach acid, and that's a reason why they experience reflux. Some people have SIBO or small intestinal overgrowth. And so these are all just different forms of dysbiosis. And then there could be food triggers, that are compounded, like, for example, chocolate or spicy foods that activate it. Some people have H. pylori, and which is typical. We all have it, but when it gets out of whack because you have stress and all this stuff, then that can also lead to reflux. So there's lots of different reasons. And I do think it's good to work with a functional medicine provider to figure out what, your root cause is. For a lot of people, it's also just emotions. And hey, when I'm around so-and-so who really makes me angry, reflux is a heat condition, right? So it's like that lower esophageal sphincter can be, working, malfunctioning, right? And then you can get more reflux. And also a lot of people are on protein pump inhibitors, which are prescribed by doctors for reflux. And it's just a Band-Aid and actually causes small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So you just have like this cycle of people who develop, it could be complicated, basically.
As we begin to wrap up our conversation, this is so good. Can you leave us with a few tips for reflux elimination?
Sure. So I think I want to focus on how our relationship with, like I mentioned, our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with food is so important. And I think it would be great to know, like, are people actually eating together as a family? Because I find in working with people that, we're always on the go, we're always in a rush. We could be eating at different times, not even taking the time to eat together. And how does that impact reflux? Well, if you're eating quickly and you're not connected and you're eating too fast, you get reflux. So my first tip would be to think about how much are you eating together as a family and see if you can make that more of a consistent practice. And make it a ritual, like have one child light the candle, guide in a little gratitude, thank you prayer. And that doesn't have to be religious, right? It just be a thank you to the food. Have somebody set the placemats, have another child, put out the food, put out the cups, or have a choice of which cup to put on the table, whatever it is. Just make it something to look forward to, and really just sitting down together would be my first tip.
I love it. When you were talking, it made me think about I am notoriously a very fast eater, and my daughter tells me all the time, "Oh, mommy's done already. Mommy, you need to eat slower. Slow down."
Yeah.
Sitting down with the family and having that family meal, I mean, all honesty, it's not something that happens every night, but when it does, it is magical. I love that time together as a family, and it is something I strive to do more of for sure.
And that is really important too if you have a child who is a picky eater, to really create that safe and relaxing atmosphere around food, because the environment is so important with that. So that's one thing. The other thing would be, if you are a mom who has the ability to, this is probably easier when you're eating alone or at work or whatnot, but like just being able to think about where your mind is and not have distractions. So with one mom, I'm working on her not eating at her desk in front of her computer and not multitasking while she's eating, to just give yourself that time. We're on our phones all the time. And trust me, it's a struggle for me too. Like we always want to be, there. So doing that, chewing your food and getting awareness into your body. That could be even by tapping your feet. It gets you out of your mind and into your body when you're thinking about a million things. So just doing that would be my second tip. And then my third would be, if you are dealing with a lot of digestive issues, sometimes what I've done in my darkest hour is just visualized my body accepting this food and blessing it and really having that connection. I've done this with someone, she had horrible reflux, and I was just telling her, just imagine your esophagus like having this white healing energy and that food just going down it with ease. And she did it, and she said that it felt so much better. So that's taking back your own power and really being your own healer. Right? Those are some tips.
Most importantly, Melanie, we would love to know, where can we get more information?
Sure. So you can sign up for my newsletter. I have a class coming out, which is going to be available for a limited time. And it's going to be on how I supported my client in conquering reflux in just 3 months, getting off of PPIs. And I will discuss 4 key plants that helped her conquer reflux to get off of her medications. And a lot of the plants I talk about also overlap with other digestive conditions. So here I spoke more about some of the mind-body practices, and then you'll get some herbal wisdom in that class as well. And then there's an offer to talk with me if you continue to need more support.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Melanie. This is such important information. And as we know, we've worked with you in a variety of different capacities, and you are just such a wealth of knowledge. So we are so excited to share this with the moms in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I love the work you do. Thank you so much.